husband left me after getting fit, but now he wants to come back because I'm the only one who can help him with his junk food addiction. 2 months ago I divorced my husband. He is 29, I am 27, and we had been married for 4 years. Before everything fell apart, we had what I considered a pretty normal and happy life. We met when I was 21 in college. I was studying marketing and he was finishing his degree, which led him to work as a consultant. It was casual at first. We went out for coffee with some mutual friends, and to my surprise, the conversation flowed immediately. It was one of those moments when you feel like you've known someone forever, even though you've only been talking for a few hours. After several months of dating, we decided to move in together and eventually got married. We were that couple that seemed to have everything under control. We both had decent jobs. I worked at a digital marketing agency, and he was a consultant at a relatively well-known firm. Our life wasn't a romantic movie, but it was stable enough to think the worst thing that could happen was a fight over who left the dishes unwashed. We didn't have kids, which was always a mutual decision from the start. Everything started to change when he had an accident. It was quite simple. He slipped while walking on the street and injured one of his legs. At first, we didn't give it much thought, but the injury turned out to be serious enough to require physical therapy. That's when he started going to the gym, initially on medical advice, of course, but then he became hooked on the routine. I saw him motivated, which at the time seemed like a positive thing. The gym became an essential part of his life, but what started as an improvement in his physical health soon turned into an obsession. The first change I noticed was the increase in the number of photos he posted on Instagram. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against sharing your progress with friends or followers, but he started posting pictures all the time, posing, flexing, sweating in front of the gym mirror. His social media turned into a showcase of his new physique. He spent more time choosing the right filter for his photos than talking to me during dinner. I found myself in the background while he was more concerned about how many likes he got, or what comments his followers made. Over time we grew distant. Sometimes he'd be at the gym for 2 or 3 hours, and then come home exhausted. If I suggested going out to dinner or doing something together, he was always too tired or couldn't break his routine. His life started revolving around his physical appearance, and there was no room for us anymore. One time I mentioned that I felt lonely, that I missed him, and his response was something like, "I can't leave the gym, it's my life now. Maybe you don't understand because you don't care about being fit." It was a low blow. I had never been someone who avoided taking care of myself. I ate fairly healthy and exercised moderately, like going for walks or sometimes running, but I never took things to the extreme, and until recently he didn't care either. Our relationship had always been more about the things we enjoyed doing together, not about what we looked like in a mirror. We saw that things weren't going well, so we decided to go to couples therapy. I had hoped it could help us reconnect, to find that middle ground we had lost. But during one of the sessions he simply said that he didn't feel the same way about me anymore. That while he appreciated what we had, his life had changed, and now he felt emotionally disconnected. I tried to keep my composure, but inside, everything started falling apart. We were paying someone to help save our marriage, and he had already decided it wasn't worth saving. It wasn't long before we reached the breaking point. One afternoon he handed me the divorce papers. I was devastated. I knew things weren't going well, but a part of me still believed we could fix it. I tried to talk to him, asked him to think about everything we had built together, but his response was cruel. He told me that now that he was fit, there were women interested in him who shared his lifestyle. Women who cared about their health and physique, unlike me. It was as if he was blaming me for not becoming someone I never wanted to be. What hurt the most was that, until recently, he wasn't like this either. He had always loved junk food, and we used to have our burger nights at least twice a week with fries and milkshakes, his favorite menu. It was something we enjoyed doing together without worries. Suddenly, those moments didn't matter because now he lived a healthier life, and I didn't fit into it. I was left alone, hurt, and completely betrayed. The divorce process was quick since there were no kids or major fights over money, and 2 months ago it was officially finalized. We each went our separate ways. I threw myself into my work, and although it wasn't easy, I felt like I could rebuild my life. However, last week, I received an unexpected call from him. He asked if we could meet, that he needed to talk to me. I didn't know if I should accept, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a cafe, and when I saw him I noticed he was a bit out of shape. He didn't look bad, but he clearly wasn't at the physical level that had mattered so much to him before. I wondered what had happened, if maybe he had changed his routine or if he just didn't care as much anymore. After some awkward exchanges, he finally told me why he wanted to see me. He wanted to ask for a second chance. He told me that since our divorce, it had been very hard for him to keep up his gym routine. He had started going less, eating more junk food, and generally felt unmotivated. It was as if my absence had destabilized his whole life, he said. That before, when he was with me, he could control himself more and avoid those bad habits, but now that he was alone, it was almost impossible for him to resist. I couldn't help but think about the irony of the situation. He had always loved junk food. It reminded me of our burger nights and how, when we were together, he could indulge without losing control. But now, without the stability that being married to me provided, he couldn't keep up with his routine. He asked me to give him another chance to think about everything we had shared. He admitted to making mistakes but said he realized I was the only person who truly kept him balanced. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He had left me because I no longer fit into his new lifestyle, and now, just because he couldn't maintain it on his own, he wanted everything to go back to how it was before. I told him no. It wasn't fair for him to ask me to take him back just because he had seen what was out there and realized it wasn't what he expected. He couldn't just walk back into my life as if nothing had happened. He insisted, telling me he hadn't been with anyone else since our separation, and that he'd just been trying to find himself, but nothing had worked. I felt some compassion for him. After all, we had shared a life together, but I also knew that my feelings weren't enough to forget how he made me feel throughout the divorce. I advised him to seek professional help, to talk to a psychologist or someone who could guide him, but that I couldn't be that person for him right now. When we said goodbye, I felt a mix of emotions. Of course, there's always some feeling left for someone with whom you've shared so much. But there was also the pain, the betrayal, and the sense that he only wanted to come back because his new life hadn't turned out the way he expected. Not out of love, but out of convenience. My friends and family have told me I shouldn't even consider taking him back, that his reason for wanting to return is ridiculous, that he doesn't really love me, he just misses the stability our relationship gave him. And honestly, I think they're right because I've thought the same thing since he told me. But I needed to write this down to get it off my chest, and to get some validation from people who may have gone through something similar. Update 1. I didn't expect to give an update on my last post, but here I am because I have one. A week ago, I received another call from my ex. Honestly, I was annoyed that he reached out again, because we had already made things pretty clear the last time we talked at that cafe. This time, however, his tone was different, more insistent. He asked if I had thought about what he said the last time, as if I had left the door open when I had clearly told him we wouldn't be getting back together. I answered as directly as possible. I told him I hadn't been thinking about it at all because I never even considered it. My response hadn't changed one bit. We are not getting back together. I explained once again that it wasn't just about how things ended, but that he had made it clear that his priority was his image and lifestyle, and that I had never been part of that new life he built after his obsession with the gym. He tried to argue, but I cut him off immediately. I told him it would be best if he stopped calling me and continued with his life the way I was doing with mine. After an awkward silence, he hung up. On another note, even though I unfollowed my ex on social media long before our divorce was finalized, a friend who still has him on Instagram shared some interesting things. I'll admit, I hadn't paid much attention to what he was doing after our separation. I wasn't interested in knowing what his life was like or seeing the gym photos he was still posting, the same ones that had come between us. It turns out that over the past few months, he's become something of a social media influencer. I'm not entirely surprised. He was always obsessed with taking photos at the gym, and apparently he's found an audience that enjoys his content. He posts tips on staying fit, workout videos, and more of those photos he used to post when we were together, posing in front of the mirror, flexing his muscles, and talking about his healthy lifestyle. While all of this seems superficial and irrelevant to my current life, something my friend told me did catch my attention. Apparently, my ex has been getting quite a few comments on his posts. One comment in particular stood out. A girl publicly asked him why he hadn't called her back after they had met. The comment got a lot of likes and replies from other people, which left me feeling strange. Because the last time we talked in person, my ex assured me that he hadn't been with anyone since our separation, that he'd been focused on himself, trying to improve as a person, and that's why he wanted to get back together. But this comment made it clear that wasn't the case. The girl seemed quite upset that he hadn't contacted her after going out, which obviously indicated he had been with someone else, despite what he told me. The truth is, I don't really care if he's been with other people. That part of my life is closed, and if he's decided to move on and date other women, that's his problem. What really bothered me was that he lied about it. If his real reason for wanting to get back together was that things hadn't worked out with other people, and not because he truly missed me or valued our relationship, that only confirms what I had already suspected. He doesn't want to be with me for who I am, but for what I represent to him: stability. What hurt me the most during the divorce process was that he made me feel like I wasn't enough, like I was the reason he couldn't move forward with his new life of fitness and wellness. And now, here he is trying to come back because he couldn't maintain that lifestyle without me. But the worst part is that his attempt to get back together seems to be partly motivated by the fact that things haven't worked out with other women. I feel used, as if my value to him only exists in terms of what he can get from me to maintain his emotional and physical stability. After that call and learning what my friend told me about the comments on his social media, I feel more certain than ever about my decision not to take him back. It's not my responsibility to fix his life now or ever again. I deserve to be with someone who values me for who I am, Not for what I represent to their convenience or stability. I'm not a lifeline he can cling to when his life doesn't go as expected. Update 2. I can't believe I'm writing again, but after what happened, I feel like I need to vent and share the latest brilliant idea from my ex. If you read my first post, you know that after his failed attempt to win me back, I had made it clear I didn't want anything more to do with him. I thought he had finally gotten the message and would move on with his life. However, after about 2 weeks of silence, he resurfaced. This time, he wasn't calling to talk about love or our past relationship, but because he had a business idea he was sure I'd be interested in. I couldn't help but think, what now? It all started with an unexpected call. When I saw his name on my phone screen, I sighed deeply, wondering what he wanted this time. I decided to answer, mainly out of curiosity and also to shut any door he might still think was open for good. The conversation started off a bit weird. He told me he had something important to propose, something that would change our lives and, in his words, something I'd definitely be interested in. I reminded him, with all the patience I could muster, that we had already talked, and my answer was the same. We weren't getting back together. I thought maybe he was trying to reignite that absurd conversation about reconciling, but his response surprised me. He said no, it wasn't about that. He wasn't talking about love or getting back together. He had a business opportunity. I directly asked him what happened to all those declarations about loving me and wanting to rebuild our relationship. His response was, well, I don't even know how to describe it. In a casual tone, he told me that since I had rejected him, he didn't think it was a good idea to keep trying. Basically, in 2 weeks, he had gone from wanting to win back the love of his life to thinking it wasn't worth the effort anymore. That's when I realized how shallow and fleeting everything was for him. It had never been serious. His love for me was as changeable as the wind. Things started getting tense. He got a bit upset, which only made me feel more frustrated. He said I wasn't letting him explain his big idea. And honestly, at that point I was curious. What kind of crazy scheme was he proposing this time? So I told him to go ahead and share this life-changing idea. What he said next, I couldn't tell if it was more ridiculous or insulting, maybe a mix of both. Basically, his proposal was that, since I work in marketing, he wanted me to help him grow his Instagram account. Yes, you read that right. He wanted me to help him become a fitness influencer. He said his goal was to reach more people, get advertisers, and make money from brands that wanted to promote products on his account. In short, he wanted me, his ex-wife, to be responsible for turning him into some sort of Instagram star. My first reaction was to laugh. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him there were several things wrong with his proposal. First, I reminded him that the last time we talked, he admitted he had relapsed into his junk food addiction. Not that I wanted to be cruel, but how did he expect to be a fitness influencer when he wasn't even in shape? He couldn't expect me to magically work on his account and turn him into a healthy lifestyle icon when he was struggling with his own self-control issues. His solution to that was that he just needed to get serious about his fitness again, and he would do it, but he needed me to handle that business aspect. I told him that even if he could fix that, it would be incredibly weird for me to work with my ex, especially since he would likely use that fame to get women. He tried to justify it by saying it wasn't his fault if some women were now interested in him because of how he looked. That, of course, made me roll my eyes. I told him that was fine, that he had every right to date whoever he wanted now that we weren't together, but what he couldn't do was come to me asking for help. I found it frankly offensive that, after telling me he missed our stability and wanted me back, he was now proposing a business relationship. The conversation kept getting more absurd. He said he didn't know why I was so concerned about who was interested in him now, since his offer to get back together was no longer on the table. He was now only offering me a professional partnership. The situation became surreal. I responded that just like I advised him to seek professional help for his junk food addiction and his obsession with appearance, he should also look for someone else to help him improve his Instagram account. Clearly, I wasn't the person to do that. But it didn't end there. He said he didn't have the money to pay someone, that his account wasn't making money yet, and he didn't want to risk his own money if it didn't work out. So I asked him directly, was he expecting me to work for him for free? His response was that no, it wouldn't be for free, we'd be partners. At that point, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did he seriously expect me to work with him like nothing had happened between us, like our entire history was just a misunderstanding? Finally, I couldn't help but laugh. I thanked him for the joke and told him that no, it definitely wasn't going to happen. If there's anything I've learned from this absurd conversation, it's that I made the right decision to move on with my life without him. I can't help but feel a little sorry for him because he's clearly not in a good mental space, but at the same time, it's not my responsibility. And if I ever thought there was the slightest chance he could change or mature, this conversation has proven otherwise. So here I am, still laughing at the idea of becoming my ex's manager and his failed attempt to be an influencer. I think I've officially closed this chapter of my life for good. Update 3. It's been a long time since my last update, but I'm back because I felt it was the right time to share how things have been going over the past 2 years. I know that when I last posted, things with my ex were an entertaining mess, but life goes on, and I've made a lot of progress since then. So here's a little update on how everything has changed. First, the most important thing, I've been seeing someone. Yes, after all the emotional chaos of my separation and those absurd interactions with my ex, I finally gave myself the chance to meet someone new. Honestly, I wasn't looking for anything serious at first, not even a relationship, but things have developed naturally. What's funny is that I'm really enjoying the process of getting to know this person without rushing or feeling like I need to reach any particular destination. If there's one thing I learned from my last relationship, it's that there's no rush for anything, and this time I'm taking things very slowly. To be honest, I've come to value the time I spent alone before starting this new chapter. It was months during which, for the first time in a long while, I focused on myself and the small things that make me happy. Something as simple as going for coffee with a friend without feeling any pressure or coming home from work, and enjoying a good movie or reading a book in peace became so meaningful. That said, I know many of you are probably wondering, what happened with the ex? Well, here comes the fun part. Even though I unfollowed my ex on social media a long time ago, some things inevitably find their way to me through mutual acquaintances. The most interesting by far is that he's no longer in shape like he was when we were together. It seems his junk food addiction has taken over again. I wouldn't say he's obese, but he's definitely back to his natural size, the one he had before he became obsessed with the gym and fitness. But that's not all. It turns out he's also made some significant changes in his professional life. After all that effort to become a fitness influencer, he apparently quit his job as a consultant to do something completely different. He opened a fast food restaurant. And no, this isn't a joke. It seems he's fully embraced his true passion, which has always been junk food. Now he shares pictures of his new business on his personal account, which I find both ironic and, well, a little funny, considering how much he used to push his healthy lifestyle agenda. What's interesting is that this doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I'm happy for him. If owning a fast food restaurant is what truly makes him happy, then he's finally being honest with himself. During our relationship, I always felt like he was constantly battling his real desires, trying to fit into an image that wasn't authentic. Now, it seems he's finally accepted who he is and what he actually enjoys. And while it's pretty ironic that he's gone from being obsessed with fitness to selling burgers and fries, there's something comforting about knowing he might finally be at peace with himself. However, before anyone asks, no, I don't have any plans to help him with his new business. In fact, I've heard rumors that he's considered reaching out to me for help promoting his restaurant on social media since I work in marketing, but that door is firmly shut. Not only because I have no interest in working with my ex, seriously, that would be a nightmare, but also because, funnily enough, my agency is already working with another fast food restaurant in town that's his direct competitor. So, not only would it be unethical, but also incredibly awkward. And while I have to admit the idea of him asking me for help makes me laugh a bit, I feel satisfied knowing I've moved on without getting involved in his life. 2 years ago, just hearing his name would stress me out and frustrate me. But now it's just another anecdote, something that no longer holds any emotional weight over me. I'm glad to say that these past 2 years have been transformative. I've learned to enjoy my independence, I've met someone with whom things flow naturally, and I've managed to keep away from unnecessary drama. And this person isn't obsessed with fitness or anything like that. He's just a normal person with a normal body. So, for those of you who've been following my story from the beginning, here I am 2 years later, at peace and happy with the decisions I made. I hope my ex also finds his path, even if that path involves more fries than dumbbells. Sorry, I had to throw in that joke before wrapping this up.